Everyone, we are live yet again, and this is going to be one of my authors' chats of the week. And as always, for these, I'm just going to give it a moment or two so that everybody can be notified that we are live, and then I can connect with my co-host for the week, and we will go from there. So I hope everyone's week's been going well. I'm actually heading out bright and early tomorrow to head to a convention, and it's really exciting. I'm going to be moderating and on panels and selling books, and it's going to be I hope a very fun time. It'll be my first time at this particular convention. It's Multiverse Con down in Peachtree City, Georgia, which is right underneath Atlanta. And let me see if I can keep an eye out for my co-host. I'm hoping she'll jump into my live. This is her first time, I think, doing a live, so it may take a moment to get everything figured out. But how's everybody's week going? I am working, actually just recently finished up a short story, which I'm submitting to or going to be part of an anthology coming up next year, and really excited about that one. So we will see how that goes. It's one of the first times I've ever submitted to an anthology, so I like the idea of anthologies because it allows authors to cross-promote their works with other authors, and so if someone's fans never have heard about you before, all of a sudden they discover you and vice versa, and so the more the merrier. And I always enjoy those things. So I'm gonna make sure my sound is up. Hello, hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you, cannot see you. I don't know why, but almost 100% of the time it always flips to this screen, and I don't know how to describe how you flip it around so you can show your beautiful face, but I do hear you, so that's a good thing.
Perfect. There we go.
Hello.
Hi. I'm in my car because my kids are just chaotic right now, so.
It's okay. I've actually done lives in my car too, but it's because I've been late and I've been running to and from, and I just pulled over at a parking lot and I was just like, nope, this is what I'm gonna get.
Yeah. So, I looked at my husband and I was like, you've got the kids, I'm gonna go chill in my car, so.
Get some quiet time for yourself.
Yep.
Well, thank you for joining me today. And I mean, these little chats, if you've ever listened to any of them, they're just conversational. If anybody who's jumps in and asks something bookish related, cool, we'll respond to that as well. But yeah, we just talk about books and what we write. And since you are my co-host this week, I'll let you introduce yourself and just tell me about your books you're writing.
Okay, I'm Aspen, or A.R. Schilling is my pen name, and I'm kind of hoping to write everything and anything. My current book is a dark dystopian fantasy, but I really love the bully romance, dark romance genre. I'm not there with the smut and spice levels that I know those books have, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I should just wet my feet first before I jump in headstrong into the dark realm. But then I'm writing a fantasy book, and I'm like, I don't think fantasy was the wet your feet type of genre to jump into. This feels like I have to just dedicate an entire world, and I have to have like the thesaurus for all of these districts and systems, and I'm like, oh gosh, what did I get myself into? But I'm enjoying the process. It's just a lot.
Well, it is funny because every author, depending on what they choose to write first, and again, some people write a bunch of books that never see the light of day. They just are like, it's not there, whatever. But they're all stepping stones to figuring out your author voice and the style you want to write, or styles, because I talk to a lot of authors who started in one thing and then they're like, no, we're going to jump over here, and then we're going to jump over here, and that's fun too. So I totally get that.
The first book I ever wrote was actually an autobiography, and it's like it's just surviving domestic violence and sexual assault, and so it's completely different. I just don't know if I'll ever publish it because I made the mistake of not changing names. I kept everything very much, and then after I wrote it, I learned about like calling people out, like they could come after me. So it's like, okay, well, maybe I'll just wait on publishing something like that and just go towards the more fictional world so I can steer clear of drama for a while.
I definitely get that because I was very, very proud of my name, and so that's what I used. I never considered even from the get-go having a pen name. And now looking back, I was like, well, there is that benefit of the distancing, because sometimes people do have the crazy super fans that are like, okay, I don't want you to know. And then there's other things about jumping genres and trying to decide, do you, each time you break into maybe a new age bracket or a new subgenre, do you have a different pen name, or do you just keep it all the same? And so far I've kept it all the same. It's a little bit of a nightmare to market because I'm YA, new adult literature. They're all fantasy, but then I have the noble, bright, fun quests, all the way to the dark fantasy, almost grimdark kind of style. So,
so I think that's fun though. And you said you use the same pen name, or do you use different pen names?
It's not a pen name, but here's the trick. It will become a pen name because I have gotten married since publishing my first book, and at some point I will legally change my name, and then it will be a pen name.
Yeah. There you go. That'll work.
Hello, Belle. How are you? And yes, you are the best super fan. Sorry, I just saw Belle's face. But yes, no, I definitely, it's one of the things you can decide. And then going forward, if you jump into different genres, especially if you were like, I really want to write like the very deep, dark, spicy scene, but I don't want people to realize it's me on my day-to-day. Maybe I'll do a pen name for the spicier works and keep some other stuff that are under your name. So you have choices.
Yeah. Hi, Belle. I was planning on writing like a stepbrother romance, and the minute I brought it up, my husband looks at me. He's like, "You're not," and I'm like, "Why?" Because he's got children from a previous relationship, and he's like, "Your children are step siblings," and I'm like, "I'm not writing it about our children. What the heck?" He's like, "It's the principle," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" So if I ever did, I'd have to completely change my name.
I understand that completely. But it is funny because even if you write, and I write more on the high fantasy, second world stuff, like I take you out of the earth and put you far, far away. And I love that. But even still, I'll have friends or people who I know be like, and ask, which one's based off me? I'm like, they really aren't based off people I know, with very, 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 very few exceptions.
Yes.
I just don't do that. I create new characters for the new worlds and have new conversations with new people all the time in my office by myself.
All of my characters are inspired by people from my real life. All of them. Every single one. So I have to I've changed them enough that the person they're inspired by wouldn't know, but all of them, they do come from something realistic. So I think that's fun to like pick apart traits that I do or don't like about people and throw it into a book, because then I'm like, vengeance. It's beautiful.
I love it. But yeah, no, it's one of those, a lot of people say, write what you know, and that can be translated in so many ways. There's not just one way, and some people like you kind of are like, well, all my characters are inspired by someone, so I'm writing, in a sense, what I know, even though they may be in a dystopian setting.
Yeah, exactly. Or they're like an elf or a freaking eagle or something. I don't know.
I love it.
Yep.
So, okay, let me know a little bit about your book characters, like how many main characters, who are they, where did you come up with your idea? Any of those questions. Sorry, I just gave you like 15.
Yeah. So Stargazer's Salvation is actually the first in what is going to be an epic saga. It's funny because a lot of my beta readers and stuff, they're like, okay, so it's like Sarah J. Maas level big. And I'm like, I've never read any of her books, but with how big everyone's like, they're like, oh, well, it's got 4 different series and they're interconnecting, or like 3 or 4 series and they interconnect. I'm like, yes, it's going to be like that. So Stargazers, you see in this book, it briefly talks about like the other systems, the other kingdoms, and how they'll connect into this world. But all of those kingdoms mentioned are going to have their own series, and you get to meet some of those characters from the other series in this book 1. So I think that's a lot of fun. You're going to see, in book 1, there's the trio, and then you have the 2 love interests. It's kind of like a love triangle, but it's a very messy, unorthodox love triangle.
Hey, messier sometimes is the better.
Yeah.
At least more.
You've got about 5 people that the story really revolves around in this book, and you get the point of view from 4 of them. And then as the story goes on, I don't want to spoil it too much, but you'll get to see those personalities grow or die off. Again, I don't want to spoil anything, but you also have the main characters from the other series that are going to become more and more prominent as the saga goes on. So it's big. But the main character of Stargazer Salvation remains the same, and that's going to be Tara. You're going to follow her journey throughout the whole series, and the saga basically revolves around her. So that part stays the same.
So is this then a multiple point of view style book? Because it sounds like if you have all these other characters and that you have multiple POVs, but of course you have that one that's always going to be there, or is it a single point of view with a wide cast of characters that are all, fairly prominent?
I want to say, so the other characters that do have point of views, they each get 3 chapters. So like Vega, she's the FMC's best friend. She's her star bonded best friend. And so she's got 3 different point of views in the book. Atlas and Jasper, those are the 2 different love interests. They each have 3 chapters. In total, there's about 42, I think either 42 or 44 chapters in the first book. So they don't make up a majority of it. They're definitely sprinkled throughout. It's told from the perspective of Tara for the most part.
Okay, that's neat.
It's getting a little dark in here, sorry.
Yeah, it's that sunset time.
Yeah.
I do have the benefit of the ring light prop right in front of me, so I'm like...
Yeah, so I don't know if I would label it as like a multi-point of view series in general. It's just that you get to see the minds of the other characters, and I do it that way because they all have information that's important to the story. Some bits are really, really small and they don't sound like it's important. You're probably like, okay, I don't know why I needed to know that. But later on, it's going to make sense. You're going to be like, okay, that's why I needed to know. So, yeah.
I want to challenge myself, and I've always written, I go backtrack for a second, I've always written single POVs with huge cast of supporting characters in all my books. That's just what I've done. Up until I do have now one unpublished manuscript where I did 3 POVs, and I'm like, okay, I feel good about that one, and obviously at some point I will publish that one, and I'm like looking at my future series that I'm world building for, and I'm wondering if I'm going to be moving into multiple POVs, and it may be like you, where it's still kind of sticking closer to my comfort zone, where I kind of focus either only a couple or predominantly one, but it does allow you to tell and give information about your world and what's happening a little easier, especially in other areas of, depending on you're doing a kingdom, a continent, a world, a universe, whatever you're writing. But yeah, it does allow you to give that information a little freely versus struggling to figure out how does your character know but maybe not know these things, or how do you imply it. And
and there's definitely that big... I struggled with leaning towards writing first person point of view, towards third person point of view. I was like, okay, do I want to write it third person point of view for that exact reason? I was like, do I want this information to be able to be shared, or do I want to keep with the first person? And ultimately, when I read books, I love the first person because I love just being in their mind as they're going. I feel more immersed into the story. But at the same time, it's like when you have those third point of views, it's so much easier to get information to the reader. That stuff like maybe the FMC, MC doesn't know, but the reader needs to know. So it's one of those trade-offs where even just having a different point of view when writing the book could change the direction that you go with multiple characters.
Yeah, and every author every author has to decide what is the best way to tell your story and allow readers to experience, your epic tale in a way that you're satisfied with, and, your readers will be very entertained. And we have choices.
Yep. It's definitely a lot of fun. I'm enjoying the process a lot more than I thought I would.
You said this book was this one set, and you said some kind of fantasy dystopian scenario?
Yes, it's a dystopian fantasy. So the kingdoms are solar systems. So yeah,
Interesting.
it's this one, Stargazer Salvation, is set around the sun. So they're the sun, or the Soul Palace, the Andromeda system. And there's 8 districts, and those districts are planets. Each planet has its own culture, its own people, and they're not called planets in the book, they're called districts.
Hmm.
So that's in that aspect, that's how it's dystopian, because, the districts are broken up and they all fall under the rule of one kingdom. And in each of these 4 kingdoms, they have their own districts, they have their own core power source. So in Stargazers, it's the sun, that's their power source. But in some of the other kingdoms, you'll see like the comets, you'll see meteors, you'll see moons. So they each have their own unique thing that they orbit around, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fun. I like that. So, where did this idea come from? Because everybody, just it's always interesting to find out how these ideas came to be. I have one book series that came to light because it was a weird dream that I could not get out of my head. Another one was because I love mythology, and a third one was all based off characters that I invented with my sister in childhood when we did our imaginary play out in the world. Created a multiverse. Who knew? But it's always fun to figure out like where these ideas stem from. So how about you? What about where did this come from?
I've always really loved dystopian, and I've loved mysteries and thrillers and fantasies, but there's not a lot of books that integrate all of that. So when you have a dystopian, it's either like a hardcore dystopian, and I love that. I love that about the genre, and I also love that about the fantasy, but I wanted something that combined both, but also had a little bit of the other tropes, like the bully romance, like those darker elements thrown in there. And that's kind of where I figured out what kind of book I wanted to write. And then I've always been obsessed with astrobiology, paleontology, marine biology. I mean, I'm studying all of the different sciences in college, so I was like, I want to implement some of my favorite hobbies and just passions and throw it into a book. And that's where Stargazer Salvation came from. I was like, I feel like it would be really cool to make kingdoms, but not like the traditional where they all live on one planet. Let's make it districts. Like let's just take one world out of the equation and make a million type deal.
I love it. That is really cool, and definitely a unique take on bracketing, like you said, kingdoms or different kind of reigns, or like you're using the term, one term versus someone else using another. But it does feel like a little bit of, what do they call it? Not science fantasy. Well, kind of science fantasy. There's so many different like new, at least new to me, subgenres that are out there, and that is really neat.
Yeah, I'm excited. A lot of people are like, oh, so it's science fiction. I'm like, kind of. I mean, I've read some science fiction books, and I mean, the matter of like in depth that they go with it is just amazing. I was like, it's not that in depth. I would call this, how Fourth Wing, they call it like a beginner for fantasy lovers. I would say Stargazer's Salvation is like a beginner for people who like science fiction, but they lean more towards the dystopian fantasy. I would say it's more like that. So you have those sci-fi elements in the book, but it's not in your face. It's like digestible.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. My young adult series, for definitely the younger side of YA, it deals with terms like wormholes and portals, and we're dealing with a multiverse with physical planets all around. So there is world travel and stuff like that, but it is still a high fantasy. We're dealing with dragons and elves and wizards and everything you want in like a fantasy, especially if you were 13, 14 years old. It's in this one. So it's a fantasy with sci-fi elements.
That's awesome.
Definitely understand that one. What was it that made you decide, I'm going to write this? I love this question, but what did it make you decide that today I'm going to write a book? Because there are a lot of people who come up with these amazing ideas, but never put it on paper or virtual paper or whatever, but never take that leap. I've had so many people come up and like, I have this great idea for you. I'm like, thank you. That's not how it works. One, appreciate that. Two, why don't you write it out yourself?
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people who are so hesitant. So what made you decide, I'm going to dedicate the time, sit down, write a book, and raise a family on the side? Or primarily raise a family and write a book on the side?
I think for me, it mostly just stemmed out of spite. I'm gonna be completely honest. I was in a really bad situation a few years ago, and I was told that I couldn't go to school, I couldn't work, I couldn't write a book, and it was basically because I lacked the intelligence to do so. And it was something that was said so frequently that I became a really jaded person. I was like, yeah, I guess I'm just, stupid and I can't do these things. So once I left that part of my life, I was like, I'm going to do everything that I was told I couldn't do. So I'm getting my bachelor's, I'm getting my master's, I'm going to become a paleontologist and a marine biologist. I'm writing a book. I'm raising not one, but two kids. So and I moved across the country. I literally did everything that I was told I couldn't do. And then I chopped my hair off and I got bangs and yeah. So everything that I was told I couldn't do, I did. And writing a book was one of those things. So
that's fantastic. Now you are an inspirational story right there. No, that's fantastic. And hey, if spite your motivation, why not? At least you put it to good use and did something creative with it.
Yeah, definitely.
And motivating, and that's really neat. That because paleontology is fascinating to me, and biology, marine biology, all that's kind of interesting and anything to do. I write a lot of stuff with animals, so zoology is fascinating to me. And so all my book series so far have heavy influences in some way, shape, or form of some kind of animal background, be it animal shifters, animal guardian spirits, or a true race of humanoid beast creatures. And they pop up a lot. It's just something that I love, so I pull from what I love and put it into my fantasy however I can.
No, that's awesome. I love that. I love when I see authors take bits and pieces of themselves and implement it into their book, especially when you know this about the author going into it. So it's like an Easter egg. Like, I know that they love this in real life, and I know that they did this for them, and that they're going to read this book and smile every time they get to this part. Yeah, I love that. I'm all for that.
It's true. It is. Those little Easter eggs are fun, especially the closer you are, the backstory of an author, and you're like, oh, I get that. Ooh,
yeah.
An extra layer. It's like what did Shrek say? It's like an onion. You peel layers.
Yes. Yep. I love that.
So with it sounds like a very epic series and I don't know how many books or spin-off series you're planning. Do you have an idea of how big this?
I'm thinking
it's like a universe. You're building out a universe. So
it is a universe. I'm thinking their max will probably be about 12 books in this saga. I know for sure Stargazers is going to have at least 3. But I'm thinking it's going to be 4. And then we've got the Cercinus, we've got the Alamaharis, we've got the Bodhi's Kingdoms. All of those are going to each get bare minimum 2 books. Mm-hmm. So, and then their timelines will all line up systematically. It'll make sense. I'm trying to explain it now, and I'm like, okay, this is a lot to explain to someone, especially if they haven't read the book yet. So, but the way that the timeline's going to set up is like the Alamaharis, or not the Alamaharis, the Cercinus Galaxy. It's going to have a book that takes place before Stargazers, and then a book that takes place at the same time as the second book. And then you're going to have the Alamaharis and the Bodhi series that also take place throughout the Stargazer series. So it's going to be something people can pick up and interread, kind of like what they do with the Sarah J. Maas books. But I don't want it to be so complex that they have to read the books at the same time, because that to me, the idea just stresses me out. It's like, oh, that would be so stressful. So I'm going to try to make it to where it's like one off, one on, one off, one off type deal. But I also have another series that I'm working on, and it's a standalone series. And it is, there's one that's going to be based around dinosaurs. There's one that's based around marine biology, and then there's one that's based around astrobiology. So it's literally all of my passions just thrown into a romantic standalone series.
This popped up. I have weird ideas that pop up all the time when I'm on these lives, and Seriously, some of them are very weird. But here's my weird one that just popped up. And I was thinking, I was like, well, I don't know. I would have to ask and poll a bunch of readers and be like, would this be interesting enough? But because you have kind of a cool timeline, and sometimes, have you seen those like t-shirts of like, I love Viking history, so there's like Viking history and it's a timeline on like a sweatshirt or a t-shirt or, and what I keep thinking like, I wonder if you could figure out how to like have like a cool little bookmark or something where it has your like, your recommended reading order timeline or the chronological order of event, of your books, and when you're all said and done, and you could have that for your readers and say, here's a little goodie.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. That's actually a really good idea. I didn't know how I was going to implement it. I was probably just going to have something on my author website like, hey, you should probably
do that too. Yeah.
This order. Because I don't know in which order I'm going to publish them all yet. I don't know if I want to finish out Stargazers and then have the release dates set around whenever I get to the other books. Or if I just want to, write kind of all of the series systematically and then push them out at the time that they are meant to be read. So I think having a bookmark or just some kind of guide to help the readers is probably really helpful.
Yeah, and especially if you decide, I don't know if you currently do direct sales or if you're considering it in the future, but if you ever do that, even if it's not a bookmark, I could almost see, once you design it, you can almost, if you have the right paper, print it from home and kind of have, or go through some of the big printing sites and have something that's a postcard side. So you have your timeline and flip it around and that's your personalized note that you put in with the book or something. I don't know, you can make it fun. Sorry. Weird idea.
No, that's an awesome idea. I love all of the ideas and I'm new to the author world, so.
Hey, I've been around for a few years. I've been around for a few years and I still feel new to the author world because that's why I keep it notepads. I feel like I always learn things and I'm like, ooh, here's something. Ooh, this is kind of cool. And never stop learning. Never stop.
Yeah, it's how we grow. Absolutely.
And I do see a comment popping up and saying that would be really useful, especially for new readers of the series. See, thank you for the validation, because I don't know, I feel like there are other authors who would benefit this, because I'll hear people who are like, I have this series, but I have a spin-off series, but then I have like a prequel,
a prequel series.
And then I'm like, whoa, because there's the publication order, but then that doesn't necessarily line up with your chronological order. And I was just like, someone map this out in a way, but make it pretty, and then people can keep it.
Yeah, I gotta figure out something. It's something my beta readers were asking too. They're like, well, because I've obviously explained this to them. I mean, not to the point where it's revealing spoilers, but I kind of told them my plan as well. It's like, I want to have all of these series and they're going to interconnect, and it's going to be like one really long story, but you're getting the background on all of these different main characters, and it's going to be awesome. They're like, great. But how do we know which books to read and when? And I'm like, I haven't thought that far ahead. I'm not that smart yet. I don't know. Sorry. Work it out.
We were talking about a little bit earlier, dystopian. If you like the grimdark dystopian, there's the Walking Dead universe, because I used to follow it, but then they kept coming up with spin-off series and then other series, and I don't know if they're prequel series, but there's always a new one, and I'm like, now looking back, because I didn't follow it in time, I'm such in a panic, because I'm like, I don't know the watch order of this.
Oh yeah, with The Walking Dead.
I give up.
Yeah. Well, and then all of those other new series came out after Walking Dead. Mm-hmm. So it's like, wait, I'm already in season, I think 12 of Walking Dead. I don't even know if there are 12 seasons. I think I'm
of the main one, and then there's a bunch of the Fear of the Walking Dead.
And I started
and it's like post-quill or whatever, probably epilogue. Why is it post-quill? Then it's something epilogue, and I just don't know. They have a lot. Anywho, timelines or a timeline map or a reading order map. Love those. Perfect idea.
Yep, very helpful.
Okay, as they call them, baby authors. I don't know, baby authors. How is your experience after publishing and finding your readers and slogging through the wonderful terms of marketing and advertising, if you dare even go that far?
So my debut actually publishes next week, but I've had ARC readers. So the ARC readers the ARC books went out this week, and I have had several people, I don't know, I want to say at least 6 people. I think the ARC copies went out less than 48 hours ago. 6 people have already finished it. Of course, all of my beta readers have finished it. More people are commenting that they're currently reading it, and it's been awesome. It's been so amazing.
Oh, I love that.
I have loved it all so much. But my marketing for it is a little unorthodox, mostly because I don't really market my books. I kind of talk about, oh yeah, I wrote a book, but most of my content is geared towards just being relatable in my experience in the book community as a whole. It's not really about my books, and I feel like a lot of my following has come from just liking me as a person and not so much my books. That's not to say that they don't like them, or most people haven't read them yet. It's just, I'm not good at marketing things. I'm more of, I can market myself. Yeah. And I think that comes from just being an influencer and coming from that big influencer background where I'm very used to appeasing the masses and talking to people on a relatable level. And then when people hand me a product, they're like, now sell it. And I'm like, I can't do that. I don't know why. I just can't. So
I understand that. And that's something that I struggle with even now is trying to figure out how do I get my book, but in a way where I'm comfortable and the readers that I finally built where I'm not like constantly like, here's the book you've already read, here's the book you've already read, I'm talking about it yet again, and they get bored. You know, so it's a weird balance trying to figure out. And I'm not, marketing is something that I'm forcing myself to be better at.
Yeah, it's, and every author has their own different tips and tricks, and I've seen things that work for one author absolutely just do nothing for another author. So I kind of just taken a step back from, you know, listening to others and just do my own thing. And a lot of my videos have that, like, I don't really want to do what everyone else is doing. I'm going to do my own thing type deal. And it works for me.
And I like that. And I have a couple authors that I know, and one of them that's a genuine friend of mine. And yeah, they on their platforms rarely, if ever, mention their books. They're just talking about the writing experience or answering questions, or I'm here for you, you know, about your woes, or here is, you know, just again, that relatability. And then they're like, oh, by the way, I forgot. I actually have books.
Oh yeah, I did write some. I know I have advice because I've done this. Oh really? Yeah.
So you've set your arcs out, which is always an exciting moment, and you know, starting to get that feedback. What is your tentative release date?
I'm sorry, I thought I saw someone standing here. Just freaked myself out. I was like, oh my god, it was just my reflection where I'm getting.
Take a breath and holla, exhale.
Oh gosh. Okay. My release date's actually on my birthday, which is next week, the 24th. So.
Aw, congratulations and early happy birthday.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited. It's my last year of being 20, and I'm actually really, really, really excited to be 30 next year. I'm hoping this year breezes by, because for my 30th, we're going on a cruise. My husband doesn't know this yet, but I'm planning my 30th, then we're going on a cruise.
Hey, plan it now. You have plenty of time. You can, get your tickets while I actually have never done a cruise, so I don't even know if tickets spike like airplanes or whatever. But you have time to plan. It's always a good thing. And but yeah, that's so fun to like celebrate not only your birthday but the birthday of your book, and that helps you remember your birthday of your book. I never remember any of them, but. But that is kind of cool. Are you going to do anything special for yourself? Or are you just going to be like, I'm relaxing, it's out there in the world? Are you, I've seen people do cakes and do full parties all the way to, it's just another day. It just makes me smile. So how about you? Are you going to do anything? I mean, this is your debut book, so that's exciting.
Yeah, I run a book club on base because I'm a military spouse. So I got a bunch of military spouses together from the base, and we just do a monthly book meeting. And this month they're reading my book. So I think like the only book related thing that I'm doing is just, we're all going to get together at our favorite place, get coffee, eat good food, and just discuss what everyone thought about it. And I'm excited. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I'm excited because these are people I know in real life too, and they'll get to sit down and I won't just be like the book club leader. I'll be like someone that they can look at and be like, oh wow, you wrote a book. I'm like, yeah, I did do that. That's awesome, right? So
That's great. And then, it's always nice to hear feedback and have that support of some kind of group or another, be it family, friends, coworkers, whoever, you're working with. It's always nice to have that kind of camaraderie and that celebratory feel.
yeah.
And, when people, I love talking about my books, but it's hard, like you said a little earlier on, hard to explain unless you've read them sometimes. And so it's like hard to get too in depth, and I don't want to give spoilers and all this kind of stuff. You kind of have to dance around things sometimes, but when someone's read it, you're like, okay.
Yeah, we can dig into it. Yeah, and I've already had a couple of the girls that are like reaching out with questions, and I'm like, let's just wait till the book club meeting and I'll answer them there. And they're like, oh my gosh.
That's what you're here for. I like it. No, that's really neat. Do you, or where are you going to be selling your book, I should ask? Are you going to be exclusive through Amazon? Are you going to go wide? Are you going to do direct? I mean, what's your
I want to go wide. I had a really bad experience with my first editor. I ended up having to get a second editor just because, she had 2 months with the book. I'd finished the book 3 months before publication date. Yeah. And I was really stoked about that. And she had the book for about 2 of those months. And after getting the DV, or like the developmental edits back, there were only 36 comments, and it's a 42, I can't remember how many chapters in my book. It's like a 40-something chapter book. And that alone to me, I was like, I know I'm a good writer, but that good? And most of the comments were like, oh, maybe she shouldn't be lactose intolerant. Or maybe add like a little bit more detail. There was nothing really super critical, which is fine. I took it as a compliment. But then when I got the copy line edits back, I noticed that all that she had changed was just adding commas and like maybe checking word spelling, but there were still words missing from sentences. There were still double sentences. There were still words that didn't make any sense, that when I was rereading, I'm like, why did I put that word there? And why wasn't it edited out? Like, there were over 117 errors still in the book after I'd gotten it back from her. And so I was kind of like, I'm not really happy with this. I'm going to have another editor look over it. And that editor ended up putting over 3,000 words of comments and like edits in this book. And I was like, now we're rolling. So, but we did it in 2 weeks. Wow. So we didn't have like this whole long time span. We had to do it in 2 weeks, and my eyes just got so burnt out from looking at this book and editing this book that now I'm kind of just at the point where I'm chilling, and I'm totally off topic from the original question. I do that. Sorry, ADHD. It's okay. Back to the point, because the book got back to me so late. I didn't get it into formatting until, it's not even 2 weeks from my release date. We only had like a week and a half. So my ebooks were ready. They're up on Amazon. They're going to be up on not Barnes & Noble. They're only on Amazon because Kindle, you have to do it exclusive with them if you do Kindle Unlimited. Yes. So for right now, it's just Kindle that has it. But I do have signed paperbacks on my website, although those are sold out. I do plan to do paperbacks on Ingram, Barnes & Nobles, and then again on Amazon. I just have to wait for the formatting for those to just be done. So it's a learning curve. I want to go wide, but right now I'm kind of just stuck with only on Amazon until we get the book done. So
I spent years and years and years up until I think it was at some point last year where I decided to start moving wide, and my first step was to sell direct, and so develop my own bookshop and all that stuff. And then this year I'm trying to move my ebooks and audiobooks wide, and then next year I'm going to do the print versions, baby steps, because it's a lot to learn.
It really is.
I understand, more power to people who out the gate go wide, and then again, either way, you can ebb and flow and change. But if you start wide, at least you know all the things. I chose Exclusive Liaison because they did have the biggest payout outside of Selling Direct. They have the biggest payout, and it is nice, but it's putting all your eggs in the basket in my mind. And I kind of want to try going wide. And in worst case, again, I pull back and move back. That's the benefit of being indie. It just takes our time and our energy and sometimes our money to do all.
Yeah. Our blood, sweat, and tears.
Lots of tears, yes.
Yeah,
Lots of tears.
Yeah.
But it's a fun thing, and I'm so excited for you and being able to hold your debut book and have it out in the world and seeing people and hearing people who are reading it. That's just a fun experience. And
it really is. I've loved it. Just people being like, I finished your book in one night, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. It took me like a year to write it, and you finished it in one night. That's awesome.
No, it is. It's that duality. It's like, yes, I'm so excited that you sat down and obviously read it nonstop. That's great. On the other hand, wow, all that effort. You read it in a few hours. And then you start getting those questions, when's the next one?
Yes. And I'm like, oh gosh.
Well, so, and that's one of the funny things is a few years back, I started trying to go into the audiobook route as well. It was just, I offered like hardcover, paperback, and ebook, and but I've never done audio until a little bit ago, and trying to catch up because now I have a number of books behind me. But one of my series, which ended up being fantastic, it was done by a whole voice cast. It was all, they have sound effects. It was the whole jam. That took years, and it just released this year. And people are like, when's the next one coming out? And I was like, okay, two things. One, not doing that same group again because it took years. Unfortunately, it just took too long. But on the other hand, it's still not going to be out for a little while because now I have to find a new group.
Yeah. And not to mention audiobooks are extremely expensive if you don't go the traditional route. So it's just, I looked into audiobooks too. I've had quite a few people ask, will it be available on audiobooks? And I'm like, possibly. There's just this, financial discrepancy where some of the narrators I've reached out to that I'm like, I would love you to read my book, their prices, and they charge rightfully so, I love the work that they do. It's just way out of the ballpark for me.
Now, I will mention, and again, there's pros and cons, so do your due diligence and do your research, that there is an option, because one of my series I'm doing this route where I'm doing exclusive through Audible and signed a split share thing. So I didn't pay anything for my audiobook narrator, but we split our profits 50-50 for X many years. So So that way, yes, for people who can't afford it and want something, there is that option. The downside is you have to stay exclusive. You can't take your books wide to other audiobooks wide to other platforms. You have to stick with Audible only. And if you are that person fishing for a potential bid from a traditional publisher, which some people have that, are lucky and get that if that's what they want, you can't do that when you have audiobooks out there. You are less of interest when you have an audiobook than if you don't, because if you don't have an audiobook and let's say you did huge, you sell amazing numbers right off the bat, you build really quickly, and one of the big 5 companies is like, ooh, you're interesting. They want to hire who they like for audiobook narrators. So I actually know, I think now 2 authors who waited, and then they got their bid, and they're like, it was all strategy. So there are lots of things to it. I like going the audiobook route. I'm glad I'm doing it right now, but it is expensive for most options. And, it is, unfortunately.
Yeah, I have an amazing PA, and she has pushed me to try and go trad with this book. And I think I sent out 4 query letters. And it's not because I don't think that this book could be traditionally published. It's just I lack the motivation to try and get it traditionally published. I'm very much, a lot of my favorite authors started off as indie authors, and people sought them out after the fact. And I'm delusional because I'm like, that'll happen for me. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. They'll find me. They know where I'm at. and it's a totally horrible mindset to have, but it's the one I come with. So.
And here's the thing is, if you are going to be an author long term, and yes, mind the fact that you're talking about starting off with a very long series, but if you do write anything new down the line and you're like, I feel like this new book I want to query, you can do that too and become, try to be hybrid. You don't have to, like, once you're dedicated to indie, you're there for life.
Yeah. Well, I do have, well, I haven't announced anything yet, but I do have news, and I'm waiting to sign and for things to official. But, there's always that possibility that I could be a hybrid sooner than expected.
Yeah.
No.
Curious, sir. Curious, sir. I really like news. No, that's really cool. I will be trying to keep my ears open for that reveal if it happens. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Okay, I just realized that the time is moving at least fast now, because the last quarter is like when everything blows by really, really fast. So I do always have a couple questions that I make sure I ask every time, because if this platform is nice, and most of the time it is, sometimes it's not, I'll be able to repurpose this on my YouTube channel and make sure I have all your information down below. So theoretically, people will come back, they can find you, follow you, all kind of fun stuff. But for everybody that's here now, where can people find and follow you outside of Book Talk? As in, do you have a website? Do you have a newsletter? Are you on other social media? That kind of thing.
I do have a website, and then if they sign up for the newsletter, they get newsletters through the website. And then I have an author Instagram, which is A.R. Schilling, and then for my author website, it's just authorarschilling.com.
Nice. I like that. And newsletters are something that I always want to get better at. I have like some new, I'm working on behind the scenes to give a makeover for my newsletters for next year. And some of that, and I will tell this to you, not that people have the time and energy to do this, but I heard about this recommended from another author, and I was like, this is so cool. But now, next year I'll implement it, theoretically. So I use MailerLite and as my host for my newsletter. And on that one, they have like a newer version because I'm old school, I guess. And so they have a newer version which offers all these new features. And one of their new features is survey mode. And so what I want to do is do this building story with my newsletter followers, where each newsletter towards maybe the bottom or midway or something, there'll be the story, and I'll start it once upon a time, whatever. However I start it, I'll give a few sentences and then give a choice. X many choices, and then people will vote on their favorite. And then whichever one's their favorite, I'll write the next few sentences in the next one, and we'll all as a group build a story together.
Oh, that's awesome.
Isn't that fun? And this is not my idea, but it was recommended, and I was like, ooh, cool.
Yeah, I love that. It's so immersive too. I love that. That's a fun way to engage with your readers too.
I think it will be. We'll see. Like I said, I'm going to try to implement it. I was getting so cocky. I was like, I'll do it next month. And I'm looking and I was like, man, the holidays. I'm in a convention this week. I have another one coming up next. I was like, no. I'll just aim for it. January 2025. Wow.
Yeah.
2025. Where's the time gone?
No, I know. It's crazy.
No, actually, again, I ramble too, but I'm an author. I ramble.
That's what we do. Yeah.
Anywho, the other thing, another question I want to make sure I ask, we kind of mentioned it, that your books are going to be available. I just want to reiterate, initially on Amazon exclusive, you said Kindle Limited, and then whenever you're able to get the print books out, you'll be moving them to potentially multiple locations.
Yes, yeah. Amazon, Ingram Sparks, Barnes & Noble for sure. Once I get the prints ready, yeah.
Yay! That's cool. I love it. And I also want to ask every time, and this is one of my because it's toward the end of the hour. And this pertains to everybody who's listening as well as you. Did you have any topics you wanted to cover that we haven't covered? Any questions you had wanted to ask that haven't been asked? This is that time to do so.
I don't know that I have any questions right off the top of my head, but I'm very much a mood speaker, so I kind of just go with whatever direction we're already going in, and then things pop in as the conversation goes kind of organically.
I like that.
Nice.
While you're considering, I do have a question for you, and this is just because I've been getting into doing more face-to-face events, and it's taken me a while. Yeah, it's car chat. It's taken me a while to get back into them post-COVID, but now that I'm getting in that groove, it's a lot of fun, and I'm having, I'm enjoying it. Have you considered potentially, once you release, to do either any kind of local signings or doing any literary fairs or anything akin to that?
I've been invited to the Dark Flame Society signing and an Enchanticon signing. I think both are in Missouri. I believe both are in Missouri. I'm not from Missouri. I live in Florida, so I was like, oh, that's a bit of a stretch, especially with my husband's military, so he deploys, and then I've got my kids, and it's just very unreliable schedules. Like, I don't know if I'll be able to make those. Now, I'm waiting for something in Orlando, but the Orlando signings are, for whatever reason, really hard to get into. Mm-hmm. At least from what I'm finding, but I think it's because I don't have any books published yet.
Come up to Georgia. That's where I am.
Oh, we're neighbors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Come to Georgia and say hi. But no, I totally get that. And the author, Jason Duro, he lives close to the Orlando, Tampa area, and he's the one who's doing a lot of those conventions. Every time he talks about a new one, I'm like, how many do you have down there? So I guess I'll have a lot.
Yeah.
But hey, and that's the thing is, when you go to one and then you start building out, your repertoire of, I've been to this place and this place, and then it's easier to get in, because it's hard when you're just starting out. It is hard. You have to do something first before people are like, okay.
I've been fortunate enough to get invites and be brought into interviews and stuff, but I think a big part of that is because I come from a big influencer background. Like, my main accounts had 600K, 20K, this big, people have known me for something different. So I think that helps me get a little bit more ahead than the average person just starting off. But a lot of the things that I'm invited to aren't necessarily book related. So at the same time, it's it doesn't benefit me necessarily. It's more of just getting my face and name out there, which it is helpful, but not in the way that I would have hoped to be. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, there's a little bit of strategy to try to figure out how to, do what's best for your writing career. But if you're a person that have multiple facets of your life, and a lot of us do, keep a balance and everything. And I did see a question for you before it popped up in the chat. I'm scrolling backwards. I was asking, someone hi again, Tim, jumped in and was asking, because missed the beginning, what genre do you write? Can you explain what you're about to debut?
So my debut is a dark dystopian fantasy with heavy sci-fi elements. And I don't want to say that's all I write, because I'm also writing a dark comedy, like a dark rom-com, contemporary, and then a fairy tale retelling. And those are the marine biology, paleontology, astrobiology themed books. So kind of all across the boards, but my favorite genre of all time is dystopian. So you might see those elements pop up again and again and again in a lot of my, James Patterson's probably one of my favorite authors of all times, because I just loved the Maze Runner series. So you're going to see those kinds of elements in a lot of my books.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I do like those kind of the post-apocalyptic, which is funny because I'm definitely a high fantasy second world, and so that's what I turn to. But anytime I read post-apocalyptic, I'm like, well, this is fun. This is just fun. I like this. And yes, dark rom-com. I had a
dark rom-com. So the dark rom-com, just think Just think about Jurassic Park. Just think about that. That's what the dark rom-com is going to be about.
It did have some great one-liners, but I'm curious because, again, I was really young when it came out, and looking back, and I'm like, how much of the humor is because we're watching it nowadays versus when it came out? How much of it was supposed to be serious that we're like, but it's not.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I know. Some of the movies I watched and I'm like, wait a second, that's adult humor. Okay, I get it.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Yeah, when you rewatch things, it's wild. It is wild. Or what they sneak in now to certain kids' movies, you're like, I hope it's over their head, because if it's not, I have questions. But yeah, no, I totally get that. And no, that's exciting. And again, for a debut author and tackling a 12-book series, potentially maybe even more.
Yeah. So the Stargazer Salvation is going to be, it's an epic saga. So there's going to be 4 series, but they just all interconnect. So, and then the standalone is the romantic, the dark rom-com, the fairy tale retelling, the contemporary romance. So there's at least 5 series coming. Very much a series writer. Even with my standalones, I was like, I want to write some standalones, but I kind of want them to interconnect. Not that you have to read the books in any specific order, but I want them to be from the same family. And so my friend's just like, so you're writing another series? And I'm like, I guess so. I guess I'm just a series gal. I don't know.
Yes, and Teal Rutledge was like, hell yes, we love a multi-series author. It's true. It's true. And it's funny because I love creating worlds and realities. I love staying in them. But then the shiny idea comes, and then I have to do something totally different in the next series. So I love big series. I love writing long series. But once I'm done, I'm jumping to a new universe. And for better or worse, it means I have to do a lot of world building.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, but then it takes a lot of time. So I also kind of envy the authors who have figured out how to stay in their universe and build off of it, but not have to start from scratch every time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one thing that I'm actually looking forward to with Stargazers is with this book, I am setting up a solid foundation for the other series to just build off of. So I, again, don't have to like recreate too much, but then they're all different systems, so they don't look anything like the system that's Tara's in. So there is some give, but there's also a lot of work that I'm gonna have to do in the other series, regardless, to just lay out what that world looks like.
Yeah, I know, of course, I love that. And okay, let me ask you one last question that I could pop into my head. Because I've had people ask this from me when especially with my Magical Multiverse and my Viking series, it's based on the Nordic mythology cosmos, and that's multiple worlds, essentially. People always ask, are you going to add maps? And my answer is, how am I supposed to figure out how to map a universe, a multiverse, a whatever? And I'm like, no. I could do like a small thing of like maybe a part of something, but like, have you ever considered doing a map for any part of your universe?
So there is actually a map in Stargazers. There will be a map in all of the books of the war academies. So think Harry Potter, in the Goblet of Fire, you see all these different schools come from, all of the wizarding schools come together. That is essentially the Stargazer Salvation series. You get to see all of these different war academies come together. So it's a war academy from this kingdom, war academy, and you get to go visit those places. You get to go to school with these students. So the maps in the books are of the war academies. So you get to see the layouts of the Bodhi's, what's I'm looking, war academy. You get to see a map of obviously Andromeda's war academy. So it's not the whole district, but I mean, it's kind of hard to do a map of all of these different planets.
Yes.
So I had to put the focal point on something, and I decided that's probably just going to be the best because this is where 90% of the story is going to take place.
And Taylor Rutledge did say Wonderdraft is highly recommended, and I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, that is one of those platforms that helps you create maps. So thank you for that one. I did put that one on my notes, and it may have popped up because he and I talked recently. It may have popped up in our conversation before, but I have a pile of sticky notes that at some point, probably closer to the holidays, I'll go filter through and be like, okay, do I remember what this was for? But that's why I have them. My desk is overrun by sticky notes of all colors because
I love that. Way to say organized. My thoughts all get stuck up here, and then I just have to scramble to remember them when I need them. Typically, it's like 2 or 3 days later, I'll be like, oh my gosh, I remember what I needed to know 3 days ago.
I have like 4 or 5 systems of trying to keep things organized, but the problem is I have 4 or 5 systems, and they all kind of clash in the end. So,
Yeah.
Who knew? And then I have another one saying World Atlas is a good resource if you are world building. Ooh, I'll make one more note on that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love recommendations.
World Anvil. It looks like they meant to say World Anvil.
Oh, World Anvils. Thank you. There is that wonderful thing of autocorrect when you like swipe things, and it happens to me all the time, and I have to pay attention very well.
Yeah.
Especially if I put text on any of my videos and just be like, did it auto change anything? Because there have been a couple that slipped through and I'm like, that's not what I meant. I know. World Anvil. Okay, I'll have to look at that one. Wonderdraft, World Anvil. I have my notes. Perfect. Okay, well, since it's 8 o'clock and I know you're been hiding out in your car, but I've taken you away from your family for this last hour, I will bid adieu for everybody who's been listening, and thanks for everybody who's been here. And just so you know, I will let you know if and when this reposts. It'll probably be in a couple weeks, and I'll give you the link and all that kind of stuff. Make sure I put all your information down below so people can find your upcoming book. At that point, your book will be out. So your book.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for watching, everyone. This has been so much fun. This has been a very much needed break. You guys have no idea. If you ever want to do another one, let me know. I do plan them in advance, but I do them more or less weekly. Awesome. That sounds good.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.